Saturday, August 5th is Hamiltonian Day at the Meadowlands. Obviously, a huge day of racing, a noon post time, 16 races. And I brought along Jay Bergman to discuss it with me. Jay, how you doing?
Doing great. Looking forward to a long and hopefully prosperous Saturday afternoon.
We're going to cover two races here, the Hamiltonian and Hamiltonian Oaks. But before we do, I want to mention that we have a special promo going on DRF. We have DRF bets 8% rebate for all wagers, well, almost all wagers, except for place and show on Hamiltonian Day at the Meadowlands. So that's a pretty good deal. We have free PPs. You can just click the QR code on your screen and that'll take you there. But we're going to jump into the Hamiltonian Oaks, $500,000 on the line. It's race number 10 on the card. And Jay, for my money, this is about as wide open as it gets for the Oaks.
I'd say wide open, but I think the real power is on the inside here for sure. I mean, I think, there are contenders all the way up and down the line. And obviously with Special Way sidelined and now Bond over the last couple of starts faltering, it certainly has opened the door for pretty much all these horses. They're relatively close. So like you said, anything can happen. I'm kind of thinking it's going to happen on the inside if it does happen.
Well, we're going to take a look at last week to give us an idea of this week. And one of the replays we're going to take a look at is Walner Payton winning the first elimination of the Oaks and kind of got things her own way and got the job done for a filly that maybe during the year, hasn't gotten the job done when we thought she should.
Well, I agree with you there. I think they made some equipment changes, took the shoes off, and she looked much more comfortable finishing. And it's one thing when Yannick pulls a two-hole, he usually goes by with pretty much anything he pulls, and rarely something pulled a two-hole early and didn't go by. So I thought that was encouraging on Walner Payton's part because, she had a good filly on her back, and she held her off pretty safely, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The other elimination went to more of a surprise with Heart on Fire, who starts right to her outside in the two-hole. We're going to take a look at this one here, and the notable thing here is that Bond went just nuts on the lead.
Well, I think it was a combination of things for Aki on the rail. Saw three levers outside of him, and I think he just maybe panicked a little bit, and ended up winding up a filly a little bit too much. And as you see along the pylons, Todd McCarthy comes through with Heart on Fire. She got used a little bit early, but she was in a good spot and never left the pylons, which I think aided her victory.
A few notable things from there. I was talking to Aki Svanstad after the race, and he's like, well, I don't have as much confidence in the horse now, because she stopped two races in a row. Maybe she needs a different kind of drive. So maybe we'll see a little bit more of a conservative steer come the final.
I think he has to. I think one of the things that happened in the week before when she lost for the first time, they stretched her out a little bit. She got parked. A lot of the races that she won in Pennsylvania last year were slow fractions, own rating, and winning kind of safely. It was the first time, her first defeat this year was under pressure. And then, like I said, three guys left outside. That didn't make any sense if you look at the program because she's a big favorite. What are you even trying to leave against her for? But when three people left, I think that really changed Aki's mind. Maybe more prudent would have been just to let a few horses go and then do what you had to do. But again, she got wound up. I think that first quarter, in my mind, brings out a significant handicapping angle we don't get to use very often, but that's an extreme quarter. And horses that got used in that first quarter are likely to come back better this week than they did. I mean, most people would look at a Righteous Resolve's effort and say she was flat because she didn't win the race after a theoretical perfect trip. My take is she was used wickedly hard that first quarter, and she paid the price for it, just as Secret Volo paid the price for it, and obviously Bond paid the price for it.
Yeah, I was going to say Righteous Resolve certainly paid the price, but Secret Volo maybe gets a little bit more credit for she actually passed some horses late. Secret Volo went past Righteous Resolve late. I believe that trainer Marcus Meadowlands is going to take the shoes off of this final here, which maybe moves her up a little. She's a legitimate contender to win this race despite the outside post.
I 100% agree with that statement. I think she was also very good. She plays into the 25 and change opening quarter. She was used. I just thought Righteous Resolve was three wide a lot of that first quarter and was took her the longest to get into that two hole. and 25-4 and taking a long time going wide around the first turn. I thought that was significant. The other thing for her is she's never been on the track before. This was her first Meadowlands race. I got to think she's going to improve off that effort as well coming this Saturday.
Well, let's take a look and see where we both went in here. And for me, I don't have a strong opinion on the Oaks. I'll be honest. And I went with Bond because I really do feel she's the fastest. Even though she stopped her last couple of starts, she's really going the same speed she was going before when we thought she was great. So I'm going on the theory maybe with a different kind of drive, with the right trip, she can use that burst of speed at the right time and come up with a victory at what's going to be a much better price than we've seen in the past. I still think she's the fastest of the group. So that's where I went. Underneath, I went with Secret Vol. Maybe the nose shoes moves her up a little bit. And Jay looks like he went with Righteous Resolve.
I went with Righteous Resolve. I mean, I loved this filly last year. And I without Special Way in the picture, I thought Righteous Resolve was like clearly the second best filly in North America. She's done nothing wrong this year, including her first start here. I mean, she got disqualified in a race in Ottawa, but she did win the race and then was disqualified. So, and James McDonald, to me, I mean, every time I've seen this guy drive, he impresses me no end, doesn't make mistakes, understands pace, understands where he needs to be, no matter what no matter how high the purses are, or how low the purses are, he's in the right spot. I think the 4-hole is just absolutely perfect. If Aki decides to leave, he takes back. If Aki decides not to leave, he goes forward. I think Aki making decisions where he goes to the front. I love him as a driver when he takes his horse to the front. I'm not as fond of him when he has to come from behind and look for cover or hopefully work out a trip. And I think that's one of the things that compromises Bond in my mind, is that he's lost confidence or might have lost confidence in leaving the gate with her. Therefore, what position does that put him in for a $500,000 tag?
Well, it should definitely be an interesting race. We're going to move ahead 2 races on the card to race number 12. It's the $1 million Hamiltonian. Field of 10 is obviously going to be on the gate here for this big final. And everyone's saying this is a wide open race as well. And while I look at this race and I think that a number of these horses can win, I still think it goes through the 2 horses on the inside of the gate here.
I'm on the same page with you there. I mean, I wouldn't say the first 2 horses, because I think another horse has a more than a puncher's chance. But I mean, Celebrity Bambino was clearly the best horse on the track last week, best 3-year-old trotter in my mind. And Yannick Gingras wants to win this race. Ron Burke has the horse prepped for this race, and everything looks to be going exactly as it has to go. And I think, in other years, I think if there wasn't if he didn't show what he showed last week, maybe there would have been more on the outside fence looking to push the early pace. I think after watching the horse last week, you got to be a little careful taking a shot from the outside and never finding the pylons for $1 million. And that's my feeling, is Yannick is not likely to invite anybody to take over early. And I'm kind of thinking that Stablemate Point to Perfect might be the perfect horse to let go. So to line up, the 2 Burke horses first and second if he can. And I'm not so sure there's anything in the middle or on the outside that can get in the way of that kind of, potential game plan.
Well, while we talk about who might be able to get into play from the outside, why don't we look at what Celebrity Bambino did last week in that elimination? And obviously it was a pretty powerful win, but horses that were behind him, French Wine is a horse that left last week, sat behind them. He's got the 8-hole here, and Tactical Approach is a horse that's left a number of times.
Again, left a number of times. Nobody took a chance last week, and I just wonder how much of a chance you could really take here. This horse is powerful going across the wire, finishing up very strongly, and has the rail. I mean, it's still the rail. I've heard people say that the 6th hole is the best position to start from the Meadowlands. Maybe that's true, but I think Yannick gets horses out of the gate. He gets them out from every post. Everybody knows it. I think the other 9 drivers in the race certainly know it. And I mean, he wants to win this race. I mean, this is the Hamiltonian, and I guess if I'm checking my records right, he's never won this race.
No, I believe he's 0 for 12 right now. And he's had some bad beats, a few seconds maybe in there. And obviously he's going to want to win it. Trainer Ron Burke said they're not making any changes. I don't see why they would. The horse was really good last time. We're going to take a look at a horse that will be making some changes, and that's the second elimination where Point of Perfect won. He's probably going to make some changes according to Trainer Ron Burke, maybe go shoeless. And Trainer Marcus Melander on the 2 Oh Well said he's going to take off the shoes for the first time for the final.
You know, it's a little disappointing to see Oh Well in this position. You know, you think he's got the class to win this sprint to the wire, and then he doesn't. And that was kind of discouraging. And as you could see, the entire field closed in the last, 50 yards, which meant they were really going rather slow at the wire. And Oh Well still couldn't go past, which to me, I'm a little leery of the whole shoe story. I mean, it's a nice story, but if everyone does the same thing, I don't know if it actually gets you a step ahead or whether everybody's still on the same page with you or not. That said, I mean, I think Oh Well has been at his best when unchallenged. And I don't know where he's going to fit, where he's between two Burke horses here. And plus, a horse we have yet to mention, which is Winner's Bet, who raced his eyeballs off from post 10 last week to make the final. And I thought was as game as any horse on the track last week. Had horses all around him and just would not get past, did not get past. So I'm thinking Winner's Bet is a player in here. I'm just not so sure how Dexter Dunn's going to put him in a winning spot.
As far as Winner's Bet go, last week was his first start without Lasix because you can't race on Lasix in the Hamiltonian. Do you see that as a cumulative effect where the second start off Lasix might be worse for the horse than the first?
I tell you, I'm not enough of an expert on Lasix to even pose a theory. I mean, I'm guessing that, Lasix is used because horses have bled, but my gut feeling is they don't always bleed. And even, just so if the horse didn't bleed last week off of Lasix, then maybe it's not an issue at all this week. And maybe the horse doesn't bleed. You don't have a problem. My feeling is coming into last week's race, Winner's Bet was as good as any 3-year-old I'd seen out there. The post was a problem. And, in all honesty, I thought Dexter drove him defensively because, he didn't want to, he knew once he knew he was parked, he just said, okay, I'm parked. I'm just going to stay parked and I'm not going to really pressure the horse. And I think there's more horse there, but he just, he had to play it that way to make sure he made the final. And fortunately for him, he converted a 10-hole last week into a 4-hole in the final. And I'm sure that they're probably pretty pleased how things worked out.
You mentioned Point of Perfect and Oh Well, probably a little bit tired towards the end of the mile. Two of the horses that were closing really fast into that was Osceola and Ghostly Casper. Do we look at those performances and say, wow, these horses have a shot here because look how fast they can close? Or we look at it and say, well, they were going so slow, of course they were closing.
Well, Cool Papa Bell won last year, so I'm reluctant to make any claims that horses that can't win the race. Yet at the same time, Osceola got away very poorly from the rail, and I just don't know that's that's going to be a good thing. And I like Ghostly Caper, but I just feel like another horse that doesn't really have a likelihood of strong early speed, and therefore they're going to be compromised. And I could see a 56.5 here. I really can. I could see Yannick getting away with it, and I could see it being very tough to catch him. If Oh Well, if Oh Well's going to win this race, then Tim Teacher's going to have to move him at the quarter or before and get the lead, because he's not going to win the race coming first over, and I don't think he's going to win the race coming off the pace. So that's really where I'm at. I mean, I just wonder, what confidence level Tim Teatrick has in Oh Well, especially off of last week's race, because you'd have to say that was a disappointing finish.
Yeah, I would agree completely, but we're going to throw up our picks up on the screen, and I'm going to tell you why I picked Oh Well to win this race. I look at this from the perspective of, I think he's perfectly drawn here to track Celebrity Bambino and what he does. So if Yannick decides to gun out and park everyone for some reason, he's sitting a nice trip in behind him. If he doesn't, and Yannick lets one or two horses go and Yannick makes his move, I think Timmy's got to come right there and then. And I just don't see Yannick parking Timmy out, going to the half, in a crazy number, because I think that's kind of a suicide mission. So from my perspective, I think he's in a perfect position to follow the horse to beat. And because of that, and because I'm going to get a much better price, maybe the no shoes moves him up, maybe it doesn't. But I felt all along that this was the race that mattered most for Owell, and this is what they were gunning for. And I'm sure they would like to have won a few races along the way, but this is the only race that really matters on the calendar. Let's be honest, for this particular horse.
You know, I have sentiment towards Marcus Melander perhaps winning a Hamiltonian one day. I just feel he's been in this position before. I think with better horses than Owell, and hasn't gotten the job done. And that's and again, almost every one of his 3-year-olds has been less than, you know, we thought they would be this year, you know, up until this week. So, you know, if Owell comes up and does it, you know, it's a great job by Marcus and his team to get the horse ready for one race, you know. But I'm kind of off that fence. I just believe that, you know, Burke has a plan. I mean, I spoke to Ronnie maybe 4 weeks ago when he told me about, you know, Celebrity Bambino not being the horse he trains the way, you know, he typically trains horses. He said Celebrity Bambino doesn't like racing every week, doesn't like hard training, and most of Ron's horses, it's hard training and race every week. And he basically altered his schedule for Celebrity Bambino specifically. So, I mean, I kind of like hearing that. It just says to me, hey, I got to do what's best for the horse. I can't be doing what's best for Ron Burke. It's got to be what's best for the horse. And I think that, you know, really showed really nicely last week for Yannick and Celebrity Bambino. And it showed when when the money mattered, the horse was there. I think, you know, they fidgeted around looking for the right options, but I think they have the horse set. And a week ago, he proved it. And I think he'll prove it again on Saturday.
Well, I'd certainly be happy for, just as you'd be happy for Marcus to win one, I'd be happy for Yannick to win one. I think he certainly deserves to win one. 16 races on the card at the Meadowlands. It's a noon post time, 8% rebate via DRF bets. We have free harness IPPs up on the site. Check it all out. Good luck.